I was falsely accused of something that happened at an event I never attended. My brother led the crusade to destroy me anyway without checking a single fact. My family chose his crusade over the truth and destroyed my life in 1 week. By the time they realized their mistake, it was too late. I was coming for all of them. So here's the story, Reddit. My brother tried to bury me after I was falsely accused and screamed that I should rot in prison. My parents disowned me, calling me a predator. I'm a 38-year-old man who runs my own electrical contracting company and teaches basic electrical safety courses at Riverside Community College twice a week. It's not exactly glamorous, but I clear over $100,000 when commercial jobs start rolling in, plus what I make teaching. That work keeps me sharp. Besides, the college pays $75 an hour for 2 4-hour sessions. Easy money. The whole nightmare started on a Wednesday when Vincent, the department head, called me in. I walked into his office after my morning session, figuring it was about the new curriculum they wanted to implement for the fall semester. Maybe a pay raise, something routine. Vincent was sitting there with Dr. Helen, the student services director, and a university attorney whose name I didn't catch because I was too busy reading The Funeral Home Atmosphere. Too many serious faces for a scheduling conversation. James, thank you for coming. Vincent had his hands folded like he was about to deliver bad news about a terminal diagnosis. We need to talk. Some allegations have surfaced regarding your conduct at last month's Skills USA competition. My brain immediately went on red alert. What allegations? 2 students filed separate complaints alleging inappropriate physical contact occurred during the competition weekend in Sacramento. Given the severity of these allegations, you're being immediately suspended from your duties pending a full investigation. I stared at him like he'd sprouted a second head. What competition? Skills USA Regionals, April 12th through 14th in Sacramento. I wasn't at that competition. Dr. Helen leaned forward with that rehearsed counselor voice that made my teeth hurt. James, I understand this must be a shock to you. These situations are always difficult, but what's important is that we take student safety seriously and ensure proper protocols are followed. I wasn't at the competition, I repeated slower this time. I was at a job site doing a 3-phase installation at the new medical complex downtown. I can get the permits, the inspection reports, everything. Vincent's expression didn't shift. We'll review all documentation as part of the investigation process. But given the consistency of the reports and the severity of the allegations, we've determined that immediate suspension is the appropriate response. Consistency of what reports? I wasn't there. I didn't go to Sacramento. I was 70 miles away installing conduit in a hospital that has security cameras on every floor. Vincent finally said, your name is on the field trip roster. Like it was checkmate. I told him the roster was wrong and offered to prove I was at a construction site all weekend. Nobody even pretended to care. The lawyer finally spoke up, repeating some corporate nonsense about liability and proper procedure. We need you to collect your materials and exit campus today. Someone from HR will be in touch about next steps. That's when I understood. They'd already decided. The evidence was just an inconvenience that might complicate their neat little narrative. Can I at least know what specifically I'm being accused of? Student privacy laws prevent us from sharing details without signed waivers, Dr. Helen said smoothly. But the nature of the allegations requires immediate action. I wanted to pull out my phone right there and show them the work orders, the signed inspection documents, the time-stamped photos I'd taken of the installation for the project file, but something about how they were all sitting there in that unified wall of bureaucratic certainty told me it wouldn't make a difference. They'd already chosen their version. I was just the obstacle. I cleared out my desk in 15 minutes, grabbed my tools, some reference books, and a few flash drives with course materials. The whole time I kept thinking about April 12th. I remembered that weekend perfectly because the hospital job had been a nightmare. Critical path work with inspections scheduled for Monday morning. I was on site from 6 in the morning until 7 at night Friday through Sunday, supervising a crew of 4 running rough-in on the surgical wing. My back was killing me by Sunday night. I'd gone home and soaked in a hot bath for an hour. I had permits with my signature, inspection reports, progress photos, and daily logs. For electricians who worked with me all weekend. My phone probably pinged off the hospital tower 200 times over those 3 days. 10 minutes of checking records would have resolved this instantly. They didn't want to check. I called my parents from the truck. My dad answered on the second ring. They're accusing me of something that's physically impossible, I said. No preamble, no drama. 2 students claim I did something at a competition I didn't attend. They suspended me. My mother got on speakerphone. Her voice had that edge she gets when opportunities arise. What exactly did they say happened? They wouldn't give me details, but they said it was at the Skills USA competition in Sacramento. I was working at the hospital all that weekend. There was a pause. Then my father asked, "Do you have proof?" "Signed permits, inspection documents, work crew witnesses, site photos, everything." "Then we'll handle this," he said. But his tone wasn't reassuring. It was calculating. "Come by the house tonight. We need to discuss strategy." That night I collected every piece of documentation I had. Permits with my signature as the licensed holder on site, inspection reports from 3 different inspections conducted that weekend, hospital security badge logs showing entry and exit times, crew statements, progress photos with timestamps, everything organized in chronological order. Irrefutable proof. This didn't just suggest innocence, it demonstrated physical impossibility. I wasn't in Sacramento. I was 70 miles away at a work site that left a paper trail any first-year law student could verify in 10 minutes. I sent everything to Vincent in an email at midnight with the subject line, "Documentation for hospital job April 12th to 14th. He never responded. My brother Brandon called me Thursday morning at 8:30. I was still half asleep, but we'd grown up in the same house and had the same last name, so I figured blood ties would count for something. Then I remembered Brandon had always needed to be the better son. When I opened my business at 26 and bought my first house at 28, he'd spent Thanksgiving dinner explaining to everyone how real careers require advanced degrees. When I paid off my truck in cash, he'd made some comment about how working-class money doesn't build generational wealth. Our parents had always prioritized his corporate trajectory over my technical work, the MBA from State University, the nonprofit job, the community leadership nonsense. He'd been posting ally content on social media for 2 years, mostly performative stuff about accountability and believing victims. His career had stalled after being passed over twice for director. He needed a cause. I just didn't know I was about to become that cause. "Brandon, thank God. Did you hear what's happening? The college is trying to—" "I can't talk to you right now." His voice was cold, professional. "I'm meeting with college administration this afternoon. I wanted you to know that Karen and I are taking this very seriously." "Taking what seriously?" "I wasn't even at the competition. I have documentation proving I was at work. I spent the entire weekend on site. Permits, inspections, crew statements. I need to go." He hung up. I tried calling back. Blocked. Tried texting. Blocked. I sat in my truck staring at my phone, thinking maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe he needed time to process. Maybe the college had told him some nonsense that made him cautious. Then I got a text from my Uncle Paul asking if I'd seen what Brandon posted and telling me to call him. Brandon had sent something first to the extended family, a private message to my parents, my aunt, and some cousins. Uncle Paul forwarded it to me. Professional language about serious allegations and supporting the investigative process and how he couldn't in good conscience maintain contact until the facts were clear. Cold, measured, but unmistakably a line drawn in the sand. That was the warning shot. 6 hours later, the family group chat exploded on WhatsApp. The message Brandon posted was like taking a knife to the chest. "I've been informed of credible allegations against James involving students at Riverside Community College. After meeting with college officials and carefully reviewing the information they provided to us, Karen and I believe the students who came forward. We will not be maintaining contact with James, and we strongly recommend the family prioritize the safety and well-being of the young people involved in this situation." I read it 4 times trying to make the words say something different. My mother responded first. "We support you both. This is heartbreaking but necessary." My father agreed, saying some things are more important than family loyalty and calling Brandon a hero for standing up for victims. My cousin Sophia wrote, "Wait, what? Did anyone talk to James?" My Uncle Paul wrote, "This is insane. Are you people condemning him without hearing his side?" I started typing a response. Deleted it. Started again. Deleted it. What the hell was I supposed to say? That I wasn't there? I'd already told Brandon. He hadn't cared enough to check the evidence before declaring me guilty to everyone we knew. I tried calling my dad. Voicemail. I tried my mother. She answered, but it sounded like she was reading from a script. "James, honey, we've talked extensively about this with Brandon. He's shown us the college's concerns, and we believe the best course is to step back and let the investigation proceed without family interference." Family interference. I'm trying to show proof I wasn't even there. Honey, we're not investigators. We're not qualified to evaluate evidence. What we can do is support the process and ensure victims feel safe coming forward. Victims of what? I was at a construction site 70 miles away with 4 witnesses and a stack of inspection documents. Your anger is understandable right now, but it's not productive. We love you, but we need to think about the broader implications. Broader implications of what? Destroying an innocent person because it's easier than checking basic facts? She sighed like I was being difficult. We'll talk when you've calmed down. She hung up. Thursday night, Brandon posted something on social media. Uncle Paul screenshotted it and sent it to me before my mother made him delete their numbers from his contacts. A manifesto about believing survivors even when it costs relationships. About how true accountability requires sacrifice. About choosing what's right over what's easy. 300 likes in 2 hours. Comments calling him brave, calling him a true ally. Not a single person asked if he'd verified a single fact. Friday morning, the college sent the termination letter. Immediate dismissal, corporate language about maintaining safe learning environments and making difficult decisions in the interest of student well-being. I taught there for 4 years. Helped design the entire electrical safety curriculum. 98% student pass rate. Never had a single complaint until 2 kids who'd never been in my class suddenly remembered I'd molested them at an event I didn't attend. I was fired in 3 paragraphs. My landlord sent an eviction notice the following Tuesday. 60 days to vacate. Apparently there's a morality clause in the lease about conduct that damages the property's reputation. Being falsely accused of being a predator apparently qualified. My business account started canceling contracts. Word spreads fast in the construction industry, and nobody wants to be associated with that kind of liability. 3 jobs worth $180,000 and billing evaporated within a week. General contractors who'd been calling me for bids suddenly had scheduling conflicts. The building supply store that had given me 30-day payment terms for 6 years switched to cash only. My accountant sent a polite email suggesting we reassess our professional relationship. My friends stopped responding. People I'd known since high school ghosted me completely. My gym membership was mysteriously canceled. The guy who owned the coffee shop near my apartment where I'd gotten the same breakfast sandwich for 3 years suddenly stopped making eye contact when I walked in. I stopped going in. I kept sending messages to Brandon. Tried email when he blocked everything else. Sent him the complete evidence folder with all the time-stamped records, all the photos, all the documents proving I was on site that weekend. Subject line: please just look at this. Delivery confirmed. He never opened it. He decided I was guilty and evidence was just noise. I stopped explaining myself on day 12. Not because I'd accepted defeat, but because I realized something while sitting in my empty apartment surrounded by boxes I couldn't afford to move. Nobody who'd already chosen a side was going to review the evidence. They didn't want the truth. They wanted a villain. And I'd been perfectly cast for the role. I didn't go back to my parents' house. That door was sealed shut. I moved my stuff into a storage unit and crashed on my buddy Mike's pull-out couch in his basement. Paid him in cash and rewired his electrical panel that looked like it had been installed during the Nixon administration. I spent the weekend organizing everything. Permits, inspections, badge logs with exact times, progress photos, witness statements from the crew. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. I wasn't in Sacramento. I was at a construction site 70 miles away that left a complete documentary trail. Monday morning I called a lawyer. Not some big firm. I didn't have money for that. But my Uncle Paul knew someone who owed him a favor. A civil rights attorney in her 30s who worked Title IX cases and had a reputation for eviscerating university administrators. She was already on her second coffee when I arrived at the diner. Explain everything to me, she said, pulling out a notepad. I explained. Everything. The accusation, the suspension, the family implosion, Brandon's social media crusade, all of it. She spent 20 minutes going through my evidence. When she finally looked up, her expression was predatory. This is bulletproof. You weren't there. I know. So why the hell are they still pushing this? Because admitting they were wrong means admitting they railroaded an innocent man. The college, the administrators, my brother, they all went public fast and loud. Walking it back now makes them look either incompetent or malicious. It's easier to keep insisting I'm guilty and hope I slink away quietly. She nodded slowly. Here's what you need to understand. You have strong claims for defamation, tortious interference, maybe Title IX violations. Your brother made specific, false, damaging statements that cost you income and housing. The college violated basic due process. This is going to get ugly. It's going to take time and it's going to cost them more than they're willing to pay. I'm not going anywhere. Good. Then here's the strategy. We don't engage publicly. We preserve evidence, file the necessary complaints, and let them keep digging the hole deeper. Every time your brother posts, we screenshot it. Every time the college refuses to review your evidence, we document it. When this goes to trial, we bury them in their own negligence. What about Brandon? What about him? He's out there calling me a predator. He's coaching families. Let him. Every post he makes, every statement he helps craft, every time he doubles down on a position without checking basic facts, it becomes evidence. The more certain he acts, the worse it looks when we prove he never verified anything. He's building your case for you. I liked her immediately. We spent the next hour discussing next steps. Before I left, she gave me one more instruction. Send preservation letters to the college and Dr. Helen. Notify them they're required to preserve all documents, emails, and records related to this case. If they destroy evidence after that letter, it becomes a massive problem for them. Different problem. I sent preservation letters that afternoon, then filed complaints with the State Accreditation Board and the Department of Education. Started drafting the defamation lawsuit against Brandon. Nothing dramatic, nothing public, just the bureaucratic machinery grinding into motion. Brandon kept posting. Long discussions about believing victims, about how dangerous it was when families protected predators, about choosing moral courage over family obligation. He wasn't even subtle about it. Everything came back to condemning me first, asking questions never. Every post was captured in a screenshot, logged, and added to the file. He was building my case one smug paragraph at a time, and he didn't even know it. The police investigation started 3 months later. They checked the competition records. My name wasn't on them. Checked the chaperone list, hotel reservations, transportation records, nothing. Then they checked my hospital job, found my permits, inspection reports, badge logs, found 4 electricians who swore under oath I was on site all weekend. The detective called me in November. He sounded tired in that specific way cops get when they realize they've wasted months on nonsense. We've concluded our investigation. I want you to know we found no evidence placing you in Sacramento that weekend. Your alibi is ironclad. We're closing the case with no criminal charges. What about the allegations? Long pause. We're reviewing how those allegations were documented and who was involved in that process. That's all I can say. He hung up. I called my lawyer. She wasn't surprised. Perfect. Now we go after them. She'd been busy while I stayed quiet. Filed discovery motions. Served subpoenas on the college, Dr. Helen, and Brandon. The college fought back. Claimed student privacy, institutional privilege, confidentiality protections. She tore through every objection like they were tissue paper. But first came the obstruction. HR started disappearing records. The college legal team sent form letters saying we cannot comment on ongoing personnel matters. When my lawyer requested the hospital security badge logs, they claimed technical issues made the data unavailable. The college tried to make it go away quietly. Their lawyer reached out in December with a settlement offer. $50,000, mutual non-disclosure agreement, no admission of wrongdoing. The email had that desperate corporate smell of make this disappear before it gets worse. My lawyer forwarded me the message with a single word: laughable. She responded with our own offer: full reinstatement, public apology, $300,000 and termination of Dr. Helen. Or we go to trial and expose every procedural failure in discovery. They went silent for 3 weeks. Then a reporter from the local paper started asking questions. Someone had leaked the police findings. The college public relations department started putting out fires. Board members got nervous. Donors started calling. Suddenly those unavailable hospital badge records appeared with perfect timestamps. External pressure did what my evidence couldn't: force them to face reality. The discovery material started arriving in January. Discovery answered the one question that mattered: how did my name get attached in the first place? Dr. Helen had forwarded the Sacramento trip participant list, and it was a recycled template from the previous year. My name was still on it. She treated that spreadsheet like gospel truth. Then she coached the girls until their statements matched the list. Emails between Dr. Helen and Vincent discussing narrative management and controlling the story. Text messages between Dr. Helen and student parents about helping them organize their memories. Multiple drafts of student statements showing significant edits and additions that clearly didn't come from teenagers. The accusers weren't criminal masterminds. They were kids. Kayla, 17, enrolled in the welding program, and Madison, 16, studying basic HVAC. Both had actually attended the competition in Sacramento. Both were approached by Dr. Helen afterward during what should have been routine feedback sessions about the event. Their initial statements were vague, confused, uncertain. Then Dr. Helen got involved. One email from Dr. Helen to Kayla's mother caught my attention. I know she's having trouble remembering specific details, but sometimes trauma makes memories fuzzy. Let's try the timeline exercise we discussed. Walking through the weekend hour by hour, things might surface. Another one to Madison's father stating they now had enough consistency to move forward confidently. The statements aligned well, just needed to ensure the family stayed committed to the process and didn't waver under pressure. There were pages more of this. Dr. Helen guiding, suggesting, shaping every detail until the stories fit perfectly. But the most damning stuff came from Brandon's own digital trail. He was so convinced he was the hero that he documented everything. A message to Kayla's mother read, "I know your daughter is having doubts, but backing down now sends the message that if you pressure victims long enough, they'll fold. We need to show strength here." Another one said, "Don't let them fixate on timelines and alibis, that's just a distraction tactic predators use. What matters is the trauma, not the logistics." He'd saved everything. Every conversation where he'd helped them refine their statements. Every moment he'd prioritized his crusade over simple fact-checking. Every time he'd pushed when doubt started creeping in. My lawyer scheduled depositions for February. Brandon was first. The deposition took place in a conference room that smelled like stale coffee and desperation. Brandon sat across from me for the first time in 8 months. He looked terrible. Deep circles under his eyes. His lawyer was an underpaid associate who kept checking his watch like he had better places to be. My lawyer looked like a shark who just spotted blood in the water. She started slow. Background questions. His relationship with me, his work in community advocacy. Then she pivoted. "When did you first learn of the allegations against your brother?" "The college contacted me in late April. They asked if I could meet with them to discuss a serious situation." "And what did they tell you in that meeting?" "They told me 2 students had reported inappropriate contact during a competition weekend." "Did they provide specific details about what allegedly occurred?" "No. They said privacy laws prevented them from sharing details without parental consent." "Did they say which competition?" "Skills USA Regionals in Sacramento, April 12th through 14th. "And at any point during or after that meeting did you verify whether James actually attended that competition?" Pause. Brandon looked at his lawyer. The lawyer nodded slightly. "No. You didn't check attendance records? Didn't check the chaperone list? Didn't ask the college to confirm James was present?" "No." My lawyer let that hang for a moment. "James contacted you after the allegation was made, correct?" "Yes." "And what did he tell you?" "He said he wasn't at the competition. That he had proof he was working that weekend. That he'd spent the entire weekend on site." "And what did you do with that information?" "I told him I couldn't discuss it and ended the call." "Did you ask to see that proof?" "No." "He sent you the documentation, didn't he? Permits, inspection reports, witness statements." "He sent emails." "I didn't open them." "Why not?" Brandon's jaw clenched. "Because I'd already made my decision based on the information provided by the college. Reviewing his defense felt like it would compromise my ability to support the victims." "Support the victims?" My lawyer repeated flatly. "Even if the alleged victim wasn't actually a victim of your brother?" "I found the allegations credible. But you didn't verify them." Silence. My lawyer let the statement hang in the air. The court reporter's fingers stopped. Brandon's lawyer shifted in his seat. The whole room could feel the weight of that admission settling like concrete. "You posted about this case on social media multiple times, correct?" "Yes." "Public posts declaring your belief in the accusations and your decision to cut contact with James?" "Yes." "And you helped the families involved organize their statements, didn't you?" Hesitation. "I provided support and guidance." My lawyer slid a printed screenshot across the table. "This is a message from you to Kayla's mother. You wrote, and I quote, 'Don't let them fixate on timelines and alibis, that's just a distraction tactic predators use.' Do you remember writing that?" Brandon stared at the paper. "Yes." "Were you aware that timelines might be important if, for instance, the accused wasn't present at the time of the alleged event?" "At the time I believed verification wasn't as important as protecting the students. Technicalities like whether your brother was actually there." His lawyer objected. My lawyer withdrew the question and continued. "You also sent a message to Kayla's mother encouraging her not to let Kayla back down even after the student expressed uncertainty about her memory, is that correct?" "I was trying to prevent her from being pressured into silence." "Or you were trying to prevent her from telling the truth when that truth became inconvenient for your narrative." Objection withdrawn. "Let's talk about your testimony to the university board. You made public comments, correct?" "Yes." "And in those comments you stated that James was guilty and that the family should support the accusers over him." "I stated that I believed the students and that accountability was necessary. Accountability for something he didn't do. I didn't know that at the time." "You could have known. You chose not to know, correct?" Brandon didn't answer. My lawyer leaned forward. Brandon, did it ever occur to you that by publicly declaring your brother's guilt, helping families build consistent statements, encouraging them to ignore doubts and stay committed, you might be participating in destroying an innocent person's life? No. Why not? Because I work with victims for years. I've seen how often they're silenced and ignored. I didn't want to be part of that system. So instead you became part of a system that destroys innocent people without checking basic facts. Objection. The deposition continued for 6 more hours. My lawyer walked him through every message, every post, every statement he'd helped craft, made him explain every decision, every assumption, every moment he'd chosen certainty over verification. By the end he looked destroyed. My lawyer had one last question. Brandon, if you could go back to April, would you have done anything differently? Long pause. Brandon's hands were shaking slightly. I would have checked if he was there first. The deposition ended at 8 in the evening. Brandon left without looking at me once. His lawyer pulled my lawyer aside in the hallway. I watched through the glass as they talked. The lawyer was shaking his head. My lawyer's expression stayed neutral. When she came back, she had that look lawyers get when they know they've already won. He's going to settle, she said. He needs to settle. His own words buried him. The university board meeting where it all fell apart happened on a Tuesday in March. They'd scheduled it as routine procedure, but word about the investigation results had leaked. The room was packed. Parents, faculty, some reporters, local activists who'd been supporting Brandon, and some family members I hadn't seen in months. Uncle Paul was there, my cousin Sophia, some friends who'd stuck around. I'd asked them not to come. But Paul said, we're watching you get vindicated, not missing this. My parents sat in the back corner. My mother had that forced smile she wears when things aren't going her way. My father looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Brandon was absent. His lawyer had probably told him to stay away. The interim college president, brought in from the district office after the scandal broke and Vincent resigned, started with a prepared statement about transparency and institutional accountability. The room went quiet. Then they read the findings. After thorough review of the allegations made against James, including analysis of work permits, inspection reports, security logs, and witness testimony, this board has found no factual basis connecting James to the alleged incident. James was not present in Sacramento the weekend in question. He was, in fact, at a commercial construction site in this city performing licensed electrical work with multiple witnesses confirming his presence. Murmurs ran through the room. Additionally, our investigation revealed significant procedural failures in how the initial allegations were handled. Students were interviewed without proper protocols. Statements were edited and refined by college staff in ways that compromised their credibility. Multiple administrative decisions were made without basic fact verification. The interim president looked uncomfortable. James has filed civil actions against this institution, against Dr. Helen, and against his brother Brandon for defamation and related claims. While we cannot comment on pending litigation, the college wishes to acknowledge that James was wrongfully terminated and that his professional reputation was damaged by institutional failures on our part. Someone in the audience shouted something. A reporter stood up. The president called for order. We are prepared to offer James a settlement. My lawyer leaned over and whispered, don't take it. We go to trial on the defamation claims. Make an example. I nodded. Brandon's case went to trial in May. Civil court, not criminal. Money and reputations, not handcuffs. His lawyer tried everything, arguing he relied on the college's investigation in good faith, claimed his posts were protected opinion, said he was trying to support victims and had no legal duty to verify facts. My lawyer destroyed him. She walked the jury through every piece of evidence Brandon had ignored, every message advising families to disregard doubts, every public declaration of guilt without checking if I was even in the same city. This isn't about believing victims, she said in closing. It's about what happens when belief becomes a weapon. Brandon didn't just fail to check facts, he actively avoided them because they were inconvenient. He helped create consistency in statements that were falling apart. He pressured families to ignore their children's doubts. He did all of this publicly, loudly, with absolute certainty. And he did it to a man who was 70 miles away at a commercial construction site when the alleged crime would have occurred. The jury took 3 hours. Liable on all claims. $150,000 in damages for lost income, reputational harm, and emotional distress. Brandon's face was blank when they read the verdict. His lawyer tried to say something. He just stood up and walked out. The college settled the following week. $280,000, public apology, agreement to reform investigative procedures. The settlement required them to send formal correction letters to everyone in the industry who'd been notified about the accusations. My landlord, all the suppliers who'd canceled contracts, the college department email list, the local contractors association, everything on official letterhead stating the allegations were unfounded, that I'd been wrongfully terminated, and that investigation confirmed I wasn't present at the event. My lawyer called it reputation repair. I called it watching them swallow their pride in writing. My old landlord called me 2 days later, apologized, offered to be a reference. 3 suppliers who dropped me reached out about new contracts. The department head who oversaw my firing had to sign each letter personally. They also paid settlements to the families whose children had been used as props in Dr. Helen's crusade. I don't hate Kayla or Madison. They were 17 and 16 when this all started. Just kids who got dragged into something they didn't understand by adults who should have known better. Dr. Helen manipulated them. Brandon reinforced it. Their parents were led to believe consistency mattered more than truth. The girls were confused, pressured, and surrounded by authority figures telling them what to remember. I blamed the adults who manipulated them. Dr. Helen lost her license 4 months later. The state board found she'd coached students, fabricated evidence, and violated about 20 professional standards. She tried to appeal. It went nowhere. I didn't move to some new town to start fresh. I rebuilt right here where everyone could see. Used the settlement money to buy my own shop. 4,000 square foot facility with office space and room for equipment. Rehired my old crew. Started bidding on the commercial jobs that had dropped me. Turns out a $4 million settlement and a court judgment in your favor is pretty good advertising. Within 6 months I was busier than before the nightmare started. My parents tried to reconcile in July. Showed up at the shop unannounced while I was running conduit for a restaurant renovation. I saw my dad's car pull into the parking lot and I knew exactly what was coming. My father started with, "We thought it was important to clear the air and talk. Get out of my shop." My mother tried her soft voice, the one she uses when she wants something but needs to pretend she's being reasonable. "James, honey, we were just trying to do what we thought was right at the time. We didn't have all the information. You had the information. I sent it to you. You chose not to look at it because Brandon told you not to. That's not fair," my father said. We were in an impossible situation. The family was divided. Tempers were running high. Tempers were running high because you let Brandon declare me guilty without checking a single fact. You supported his play because he was always your golden child. And I was always the disappointment who worked with his hands instead of sitting in a corporate office. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We never said that. You didn't have to. You showed it when it mattered." I went back to work. They stood there for another minute, then left. Haven't heard from them since. The family rupture never healed. Uncle Paul and my cousin Sophia stayed in touch. Everyone else either sided with Brandon or just went quiet. That's fine with me. Blood ties don't mean anything when the people who share it stab you in the back at the first opportunity. Brandon tried to rebuild his activist career, but the court judgment followed him everywhere. Got fired from his nonprofit job months after the verdict. Last I heard he was working at some insurance company doing grunt work for $45,000 a year. His wife Karen left him in September. Took the house, the car, and whatever dignity he had left. I didn't celebrate. Didn't feel good watching him fall apart. But I didn't feel bad either. The real satisfaction came from watching everyone who'd been so certain, so righteous, so convinced they were on the right side of history, watching them all have to eat their words and knowing they'd never admit they were wrong. It was a cold Saturday in October, almost 18 months after the accusation, when Brandon finally showed up. I was closing the shop around 6 in the evening when his truck pulled into the parking lot. I recognized the vehicle immediately. Same old Ford he'd been driving since college. He sat in the cab for a good 5 minutes before getting out. I kept loading tools into my service van like I hadn't seen him. He walked over slowly and stopped about 10 feet away. "James." I finished loading the drill kit before looking up. "What do you want?" He looked worse in person than I'd imagined. Thinner, older, beaten down in a way that had nothing to do with age. "I wanted to talk." "About what?" "About everything. About what happened. About how I—" He stopped. "I messed up. I know that now." I closed the van door and leaned against it. "You drove an hour to tell me you messed up. That's your big revelation." "I'm trying to apologize." "You're trying to convince yourself you're better. There's a difference." His jaw clenched. "I was wrong about all of it. I should have listened to you. Should have looked at your evidence. Should have checked if you were actually there before declaring me a predator to the entire family. Yes. Should have verified a single fact before advising families to ignore their children's doubts. Yes. Should have considered, even for a second, That maybe your crusade was more important to you than the truth. He didn't answer that one. I stepped away from the van. You didn't just mess up, Brandon. You made a choice. You chose to believe I was guilty because it felt good. Because it made you the hero. Because checking facts was work while having faith in your own righteousness was easy. I was trying to help. You were trying to feel important. And when the evidence didn't fit your narrative, you just ignored it. I thought I was doing the right thing. No, you thought you were the right person. There's a difference. You spent your whole life needing to be better than me, smarter, more successful, more important. When those students made their accusation, you saw your chance. You finally had proof you were the good brother and I was the failure you'd always believed I was. His hands were shaking. That's not. You didn't check if I was there because deep down you didn't want to. You wanted me to be guilty. It fit the story you'd been telling yourself since we were kids. The silence stretched between us like barbed wire. I lost everything, he said finally. My job, my marriage, my reputation. I know that doesn't fix what I did to you, but nothing. You didn't lose those things because of what I did. You lost them because of what you did. Because you prioritized your crusade over basic facts, and when the truth came out, everyone could see exactly what you were. I'm trying to make this right. You can't. Some things don't get fixed with an apology 18 months later. You destroyed my life because it was convenient for you. You let mom and dad think I was a predator because it made you look better in comparison. You helped coach families to ignore evidence because you couldn't handle being wrong. I walked past him toward my truck. James, wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. You want forgiveness? You want closure? You want me to tell you it's okay and we can rebuild our relationship? I want to try. Then try this. Live with what you did. Live with the fact that you destroyed your brother on accusations you never verified. Live with knowing that when it mattered most, you chose your ego over truth. Live knowing that every person who praised you for being brave was praising you for being certain about something you never bothered to check. Don't call me again. Don't show up at my shop. Don't send letters, emails, or messages through family. We're done. I got in my truck and started the engine. Through the windshield I could see him standing there in the parking lot, shoulders slumped, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. His hands were in his pockets. His head was down. He looked like a man who'd finally understood what he'd done and realized there was no way to fix it. I drove away and didn't look back. The business kept growing. By the second year after vindication, I had 12 employees and was bidding on projects worth $500,000. The commercial contractors who'd blacklisted me were now competing for my attention. My phone rang constantly with job offers. The community college reached out twice asking if I'd consider returning to teach. I declined both times. That bridge was burned and I had no interest in rebuilding it. Some of my old students reached out privately to apologize for believing the accusations. I appreciated that. They were kids who'd been told something by authority figures they trusted. I didn't hold it against them. The ones I couldn't forgive were the adults who should have known better. The administrators who chose narrative over facts. The family members who chose judgment over verification. The brother who chose his crusade over his own blood. Uncle Paul told me my mother asked about me sometimes. Asked if I was doing okay, if I was happy, if I'd ever forgive them. He said she cried when he told her about the business success, about how I'd rebuilt everything they'd helped destroy. I don't know what she expected. That I'd come crawling back grateful they'd finally acknowledged their mistake? That blood would somehow override betrayal? Some things you don't come back from. They made their choice when it mattered. I made mine when I realized family means nothing if it can be discarded the moment it becomes inconvenient. I'm not bitter anymore. Bitterness requires caring about what was lost. I don't care about the relationship with my parents. I don't care about reconciling with Brandon. I don't care about being part of a family that showed me exactly how little I mattered when the stakes were real. What I care about is the life I built from the ruins they left. The business that's thriving. The reputation I repaired through work, not words. The people who stayed when it would have been easier to walk away. Uncle Paul, Sophia, Mike who let me crash in his basement, the lawyer who took my case when I had nothing, the crew members who vouched for me when my name was dirt. Those are my people now. The rest can live with their choices. I sleep fine at night knowing I didn't destroy an innocent person to feel righteous. Can they say the same? I doubt it. But that's not my problem anymore. They made their bed. They can lie in it. As for me, I'm done looking back. There's too much ahead worth focusing on.